Interested in doing business with the government? Helping businesses understand and win government contracts is an essential service of the New Jersey SBDC network. Our procurement specialists can help you obtain registrations and certifications, prepare bids, and even match you with contracting opportunities from agencies that buy your goods and services. Want to learn more? Visit us online to get started on your path to success today.
A pleasant good afternoon to everyone. Sorry, my camera was off. There we go. All right, a pleasant good afternoon to everyone. My name is Priscilla Liebert-Calder. I am the event coordinator here at the NJSBDC at Rutgers-Newark. And on behalf of our director, Dr. Tendai Ndoro, I would like to welcome you to our after lunch webinars on winning public federal contracts. For those of you who are on today's call who may be unfamiliar with the SBDC, which stands for Small Business Development Center, we are a resource center for the Small Business Administration, and we are also the premier provider of business consulting and training services to entrepreneurs and small businesses across New Jersey. We are one of 12 centers in the NJSBDC network, each center being responsible for one or more counties. We are responsible for Essex County. And our center is hosted by the Rutgers Business School and funded through a public partnership between the SBA, Rutgers University, and the New Jersey Business Action Center. The mission of the SBDCs is to provide no-cost, one-on-one confidential business counseling or consulting to individuals who may be thinking of starting a business, and also to established businesses who need help growing or scaling their business. We have consultants in various areas and industries that can help you with the one-on-one consulting. So if you need help with developing a business plan, you need help with digital marketing, or you need help with government contracting, which we'll be covering today, you simply reach out to us and request assistance, and we assign you to the appropriate counselor. So you can visit any one of our websites, the first being www.rnsbdc.com. It's at the bottom here on my slide. And at the top of the page, just click on the Request Counseling button. That will lead you to complete a form. And once we receive your request within 24 to 48 hours, a consultant would reach out to do an assessment with you concerning what was requested in your request for counseling. The other website is www.njsbdc.com. That's New Jersey Small Business Development Center.com. And the reason I'm giving you that website is for those that are on today's call, you may not be in Essex County. However, if you go to our headquarters website, you'll be able to select your county, and it will direct you to your local SBDC where you can request those services. But you can also feel free to do it on our website. Just note that if you're not in Essex County, we do transfer you to your appropriate local SBDC office. Now, for the benefit of those attending today's webinar, we have muted audio, so please use the Q&A feature here on Zoom, and be sure to ask your questions. We'll try our best to answer those questions at the end of the webinar. You can also use the chat, but we do prefer the Q&A because sometimes there's so many questions that we may lose track of the questions being asked. And if you use the Q&A, you're able to see if your question has been answered, or we're able to type the answer so everyone can benefit from the questions that are being asked. So we do ask that you use the Q&A. Our recording of today's presentation will be sent out along with a copy of the slides, because Monica is going to give a lot of information, and so those slides are going to be very beneficial to you. So we do send that out around the same time we send the replay of today's webinar. All right, so it is now my pleasure to introduce to you the presenter for today, Ms. Monica Randall. Monica is the founder of the Randall Group, and she's also the SBDC consultant for the NJSBDC here at Rutgers-Newark in the area of government procurement. Most likely, if you request assistance concerning, the federal certifications, how to get into the federal arena, she would most likely be the consultant that we assign you to. So without further ado, I will turn the rest of today's presentation over to Monica.
Thank you, Priscilla. I appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking some time to either be with us before you eat, or if you plan to eat after the session. Either way, thank you for joining us. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we'll jump right in and get started. I have the Q&A box pulled up on my screen. I don't know if it will stay there, so I'll try to get to questions as we move forward. But if I don't stop and answer your question, no worries. When the presentation is over, I will go back to the Q&A box and make sure I grab every single question and get everything answered for today. So let's go ahead and get started. Share my desktop. Great, and the Q&A box did stay on my screen, so I will do my best to every now and then take a look over there and see what's going on. So let's get started. So today's webinar is about government contracting. You have your widget, you want to sell it, you want to pitch it to the government. Why? The government has these huge budgets for spending volume on goods and services. And so if you're not currently providing your services to the government, after today's webinar, you should be able to change your mind a little bit about that. All right, and definitely consider operating in the government space. From the federal side, typically bullet number 1 here, they typically spend about $500 billion in a particular fiscal year on goods and services. And what's the government fiscal year? Typically a business's year end is January to December, not the federal government. Theirs starts October 1 of one year and ends September 30th of the following year. So with that being said, that's when spending occurs. So we all know that you always hear on TV around October, November, the government's going to shut down if they don't sign, and finalize the budget. The government's currently operating on a continuing resolution. That's what that is. So typically the budget for which should come out, meaning each agency receives the money that they're going to be allotted by Congress to spend on goods and services, that typically should be given to them October 1. It never does. It's never given to them. I used to work for the government for 23 years. We never got our budget to start spending and getting those things that we needed to be able to run as an agency. We never received that money October 1. We usually would receive that money into the new year, meaning October, November, December. They're, the senators, whomever, Congress, they're fighting with each other over what the budget's going to be. So understand that when you're looking for work around that time, it won't be a lot. Why? Because I don't have a budget. It's hard for me to put contracts out for bid if I don't have a budget. So with that $500 billion, I want to say it's being spent from October to September, but not really. It's more like, should be October to September, but it's more like by the time they receive the money, you're January of the following year. So that gives me 9 months to spend the money that Congress allots me on the goods and services that I need. But understand this, every dollar must be spent by September 30th. Irregardless of when I gave you your money, you must spend it. And what the government does is if the money that's allotted to them to purchase goods and services that they need to operate as an agency is not spent by September 30th, the government takes whatever's left in there, they take it back. And then you jeopardize as an agency yourself of being able to receive that same amount of money or more for the following year. So why am I kind of talking about this so much? Because you need to understand when to reach out. So the first thing I said to you was the budget should come out October 1, but it typically doesn't. So from October to December of every year, federal government agencies typically don't have a lot to spend. So you're not going to find a lot of work for bid. It's slow, it's quiet, no one's returning your phone calls, no one's responding to your emails. That's why I have no money. I really have nothing to talk about right now. Come January, all the way through July, August, it's like, especially June through end of August, a spending frenzy. So we went from the worst time to look for work, October, November, December of every year. And then the best time to look for work is when? March, April, you're shaking hands virtually, of course, because of COVID, kissing babies, you're putting yourself out there, you're attending events, etc. Then the spending starts. Come June, July, August, especially August, into beginning of September, they are buying everything they can, even stuff that they don't need, they meaning the federal government. So that's the best time to look for work. But you should never wait until June comes and then start looking for opportunities. What happened to the shake hands, kiss babies? So make sure you're building those virtual relationships October, November, December, all the way through March, April. So when they start spending, they know who you are. What we typically try to do is we focus so much on look for work, that we forget to actually build a relationship. And how it works in the federal government, no relationship, no contract. I'm not willing as a contracting officer to take the risk on hiring you when I know nothing about you and I've never worked with you before. So I gave you that little extra information there so you can kind of write down what's the best time, what's not a great time for us to be reaching out. And then when should we really be going hard trying to get these federal government contracts? I've now set that timeline for you. And guess what? It doesn't change. It's the same every year. All right. And then the last bullet tells you that of that $500 billion that's being spent on goods and services, Congress also imposes goals on these federal agencies so that there is small business participation. And so let's walk through what that 23%, what that breakout looks like. All right. So the 23% includes the 8A program. So if I am FDA, Food and Drug Administration, and I'm provided with $2 billion to spend from October 1 to September 30th. They would like to see of my $2 billion, at least 23% go to small business, which includes the 8A program. Then they want to see another 5% of my $2 billion go to SDBs, then another 5% to the Woman-Owned Small Business Program, and then bringing up the rear, we have another 3% of my $2 million budget for Hubzone and service disabled vets. Those are the goals. So that's the good news, that the government recognizes that there should be small business participation. And for those who hold certain certifications, like the ones I've listed here, let's also set something aside for them. That's the good news. The bad news is a lot of agencies are not meeting their goals. And there is no punishment, there are no repercussions whatsoever for them not meeting the goal. That's the bad news. So they gave us something, but then it's not really worth the paper that it's written on because there's no mandatory mandate that they meet these goals. It's do your best. Try to have inclusion across these programs if you can. If you can't, there's no punishment. We're not going to reduce your budget for the following year, or it's more like a tap you on the hand and give you your next pot of cash for the current fiscal year and send you on your way. And then every year they have to go, they meaning the federal government agencies, have to individually go before Congress and let them know in writing, in person, as well as provide a written report of how they did on their goals. So some agencies are hitting it out of the park. So where you're going to find the majority of your contracts being awarded will be the GSA schedule, which we're about to go through in just a second. That's a way for your federal customer to be able to award a contract, and the 8A program. Those are the two popular ones. So that 23% of my total 23% of my $2 billion being set aside for small business, which includes the 8A program, most agencies are meeting that goal. That's really the goal that they go after, like on a consistent basis. Like 23%, guys, 23%. We need to make sure that at least 23% of our total budget is set aside for small businesses, which includes any awards that we set aside in the 8A program. So 90+% of your federal government agencies are meeting that goal. It's the other certifications where the issue lies, okay? And then also we could have a whole conversation about bundling. You know, how they're having these huge contracts that they're putting out there for bid, and they're purposely making them so large so the small business cannot participate. But that's a different subject for a different day, but you're going to run across those as well. All right, so there's some challenges, but I wanted you to know that there is something out there for us. We just have to go forward, and also we need to be knowledgeable about what that something is. All right. This is a breakdown of, and I do see your question in Q&A, but I need to move forward just a little bit more. I just want to advance through a little bit more slides, and then I'm going to jump right back into that Q&A. All right. And I think that's Terry. So Terry, I see it. All right. So of the different SBA programs, which is your 8A, your woman-owned, and your veterans program, there's parity across these programs. What do I mean by that? It means that the federal customer is not obligated to utilize one program over another. It's their choice. So it's my contract, sticking with the example of Food and Drug Administration, it's my contract. So SBA can't tell me what program to utilize to administer my contract through. If I want to set it aside, I will. If I don't want to, I don't have to. So that's what parity means. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is you may speak to a contracting officer that says to you, very flippantly, I would award the contract to you, but I can't because I have to, it must be an 8A set aside because it's mandated to be an 8A set aside and you're not 8A certified. That's the only way that statement is true, is if the requirement that you all are speaking of, that contract, is already in the 8A program. If it's already in a particular program, the customer, the agency cannot just arbitrarily remove it out of one program and not place it into another, or place it into another because they want to hire a Hubzone firm rather than the 8A. They can't do that without permission from SBA. But that's the only time that that statement is true. I don't like to speak in absolutes. I won't say only. I can think of another couple of scenarios, but let's just keep it simple. So if it's in 8A, it stays in 8A unless SBA allows the agency to remove it from 8A, and they need to state a reason. And of course, they need to get all of that in writing. But I just wanted you to know that when you're told that statement, it's usually not true. That's just their way of trying to get rid of you or end the conversation or end the email communication. There's no obligation to utilize one program over another. But let's take a further look at this slide. So when we start from the top down, the very top row tells us what? There's parity amongst the programs. Thanks for letting me know that, Monica. But now let's go with FDA. So if I stick with my example of FDA and I have an opportunity, let's say it's for cybersecurity services, and I have a $3 million contract for cybersecurity services, it's on my desk. Here's how my thought process goes as a contracting officer. Will I set this cybersecurity contract aside into one of these certification programs? 8A, Hubzone, woman-owned, service-disabled vet. I might say to myself, no, I don't want this particular opportunity to be a set-aside. Again, top-down approach. If it's not going to be a set-aside, hey, maybe I'll go small business. If it's $250,000 or less, that's base year plus option years, maybe I'll just make it a total small business set-aside and let all the small businesses that exist fight over it. Next option I have is if it's over 200, again, top-down approach, we're working our way down. So now I'm at unrestricted competition. If it's over $250,000, I could go unrestricted competition and now really open it up to like every single business in the world who provides this particular widget. You never want unrestricted competition. We as small businesses need to fight to either have it as a small business set aside, or again, now I'm going from bottom up, either make it a small business set aside or have it go into one of the certification programs because I hold that particular certification. You have to market for that. You have to fight for that. Do not allow unrestricted competition, especially when we talk about, like for 8A, for instance, they can sole source an 8A opportunity to a company without creating any other type of competition, as long as they keep the dollar value under $4 million. So you've got $4 million to play with there. So if you're holding 8A and there's a cybersecurity contract, and right now it's not set aside as a total small business or an 8A or any other program, you need to fight to have that moved. But guess what though? Timing is key. You can't fight to have that moved if when you located that opportunity, it was in beta.sam, which we'll go through later on. If it was already in beta.sam, it's too late. It's already a contract. It's already put out for bid. It has a response date of when you need to prepare your proposal. It's too late. So one of the things that we do in this class, as well as, again, this is just a taste of our all-day class. In the all-day class, we go through things like procurement forecasts. That's looking at future work. Instead of concentrating so much on now, bidding now, where you get to change things, or at least request that they be changed, such as my scenario, is under the forecast because it's not a contract yet. That's part of that shake hands, kiss babies, building those relationships prior to. But if you're just one of those types of firms where all you do all day is check beta.sam looking for work, you've missed it. You are missing what true marketing for your company is like and how to truly look for work. You are waiting for it to be shown to you versus you going out and finding the forecast and just going for it. But again, in my scenario, you can only have things moved if they haven't decided on a certain type for set aside. Is under the forecast level and not when it's already a contract. All right. And then in red at the bottom, I'm letting you know that anything under $250,000 should automatically be set aside for small business. So that's the law. If the requirement is $250,000 or less, you should go small business all day, every day. I'm afraid I'm one of those people, little bit of good news, little bit of bad news. So that's your good news, is that there's something in the regulations, in the law, that says if it's under 250, it should automatically go to small business. But here's the loophole in that. If the agency is unable to identify a small business that can provide those services, they are allowed to go large business or just open it up to unrestricted. They don't have to go total small business set aside. Why? Because they can prove, and it must be documented in their contracting file, that they were unable to locate a small business to perform those particular services because they were highly technical, or they needed lots of whatever their lame reasoning is, and usually it is quite lame. They're able to go against the regulations and have that $250,000 go to Lockheed like they need it, right? But this is what the challenge is with doing business with the federal government. You have these situations where you set up these programs that are supposed to be for the benefit of us, but then you have these loopholes built into the program so that the contracting officer / contracting specialist can circumvent and be able to utilize who they want, which is who? The bigger businesses. And so unfortunately, part of my job is to educate you on the fact that, yes, we have a great program that says, and it's called Simplified Acquisitions, this is down in red, that anything under 250 is for us. But at the end of the day, it might be for us. It just depends on the scenario. Okay, so I'm going to take a pause and look at Terry's question here. So Terry, as a new business, which designations are most important and which should we start with to obtain? We qualify as a small business and a woman-owned. So that's a little bit of a loaded question. So if you are a new business, that means you have not generated a lot of revenue. So you definitely cannot qualify for 8A. 8A has a mandate that you be in business for at least 2-4 years. But the Hubzone program, the woman-owned small business program, and the service disabled vet program does not require, they don't have a time in business requirement. So what you'll need to do is take a look at the eligibility for each of those programs, and that's Hubzone, woman-owned, and service-disabled vet, and make sure you meet the eligibility criteria. But those three do not have a time and business requirement. So I cannot say to you which ones you should go for. You need to check eligibility first. And that's actually what we're about to jump into, all right? So let's see here. So the first program I want to discuss is the GSA schedule. This Q&A box is like, you would, if you could see it on my screen, it's absolutely huge. Like it's covering things I need to read. But anyway, so the first program we're going to jump into is the GSA schedule, all right? So I'm going to give you some information about the program itself. My PowerPoint presentations are more like reference guides. So I provide a lot of information sometimes on a slide. It's because I have a lot I need to say about that thing, not necessarily always in bullet format. I want you to be able to utilize the PowerPoint slide later on to go back to get some of your additional questions answered. So don't be surprised if you see a lot of information populating on the screen. No way I expect you to remember all of that. That's why Priscilla's going to send this out to you. So on this particular slide, just letting you know that GSA, they have their own program. Outside of 8A, woman-owned, Hubzone, and veterans, which are all SBA programs, this is by the General Services Administration, which is what GSA stands for. So with their program, you're able to sell all different types of, and I call them widgets. And why do I call them that? Because it could be from apples to bananas to grapefruits to avocados and everything in between. Like you pretty much can sell just about everything on the GSA schedule. All right, so it's usually a good fit for any type of business. Basket weaving, I'm pretty sure you can find something on there about that. Like they just have such an array of opportunities for different types of industries and businesses to participate. So what does the GSA schedule do? So with the 8A, the Hubzone, the woman-owned, and the veterans, you've got to, pull up your pants, get in your car, if we were not in COVID, and go out and shake hands and kiss babies and tell the whole world, I'm 8A, I'm Hubzone, I'm woman-owned, I'm veterans, please hire me, here's what we do. That's what you would have to do. There's a lot of heavy marketing that needs to be done in order for you to push those certifications, and we call that leveraging, to leverage those certifications to win business. Whereas with GSA, the customer is going to the GSA schedule. They're looking at those companies that currently hold a GSA schedule, and they're looking for what widgets they sell, period. So notice how the marketing is switched. Not a whole lot needs to be done on your part. You pretty much apply for the schedule. There are lots of schedules, by the way. You apply for the schedule, you are approved for the schedule, you submit your application, you are approved, your name goes onto a database along with every other company that provides that same widget. That's pretty much how this works. And pretty much when you're sitting there, everyone can see your rates. They can see your rates. They can see what you charge. They can see other contractors that actually provide what you provide. And I do apologize for the dog barking. I knew I should have put her away. So I do apologize about that if you can hear it. So again, this is pretty much how that goes. You can simply obtain the schedule, sit on the schedule, and have the customer go to the schedule and find you. But you have to keep in mind, rates are publicized. So you cannot hide what you charge for that widget, because those potential customers who want to make the purchase are able to see your rates along with everyone else's. And then from there, simply make a determination on whose rate's the best and then reach out. So let's say you're on the schedule and a potential customer goes to the schedule and finds you, sees your rate, they like it. How does that process work, Monica? They simply send you an email through the GSA Advantage system. They send you that email and then you receive an email letting you know, we would like a quote for XYZ services. Notice how we're not putting on our pants, getting in our car, shaking hands and kissing babies, attending all these virtual events. It's the complete opposite. So it's really one of those things that works for you. You just need to make sure you seek the right schedule. And with that being said, at the bottom, I've given you some information in regards to the schedules that GSA offers, as well as the program as a whole and some of the requirements. And Terry, for you, GSA requires 2 years of financial statements be provided with the application, along with 2 years of past performance. So with GSA, you need to provide copies of contracts and invoices, proving past performance, and then the invoices show the rates that you've been charging your customers. And then the last thing I want to say about GSA in that regard is your rates are really important. It's like the most important thing to GSA, because they will, as an agency, need to make a determination of how much they're going to allow you to sell that widget for. Doesn't matter what you've been selling it for. Now that you're trying to get onto my schedule, along with all the other companies that sell that same widget, we want the best price for those who are utilizing the schedule to make the purchase. So the GSA is going to negotiate with you. You're going to say, typically for the Apple, we charge our client, and our invoices totally prove this, we charge $5 an Apple. GSA is going to say to you, $5? That's fine, but we want $250. And you're going to look at them and go, you're like cutting my profit. GSA, no, we want $250. And you go, how about $425? And they go, how about $3? This is how it works. When you are attempting to be awarded the GSA schedule, they're going to negotiate to try to get your normal rate down. And of course, it's always going to be down. GSA, when they call that a discount, GSA wants some type of discount to allow you to sell those widgets that you've been selling off the schedule on the schedule, but they are not going to pay what everyone else has always paid. They're going to expect a discount. So I say to you, look at your rates. Look at your invoices. Are you at market? Are you below market? Are you above market? Where are you exactly? Because if you're strongly considering obtaining a GSA schedule, you need to understand GSA is not going to allow you to charge that rate. It will be less. They will expect a discount. Even if you're at market, they still will want some type of discount. Point one, point two, they will always want something. I've never, as a company, been able to get a GSA schedule awarded for an applicant who did not offer GSA a discount. Unheard of. They want a discount, irregardless. And you can show them proof that, hey, this is what market rate is. Hey, I found 4 companies on your schedule that's selling it for the same rate. They won't care. They will want less. They will always want less. So I would say to you, do some research on your rates. Find out where you are. What's the best place to do a compare and contrast? GSA Advantage. If you go to GSA's website, don't forget I said earlier, you can see everyone's rates. Go onto the schedule, see who else already holds that schedule, which is your competition, see what they're charging, and then compare that to what rates you've been charging. So you can strongly consider whether or not you want to seek the GSA schedule. And then I know I said lastly, but these things just keep popping up because it's so important. And then lastly, if you conduct that research and it turns out you're too low, do not seek the schedule. Wait. And what do you want to do in that time? You want to start to bill your clients or new clients at the higher rates, and then seek the schedule, so that those will be the invoices that you submit. So you will not submit to GSA as part of your application those invoices showing the lower rate. Once you figure out that your rate's too low, and you know that if you seek the schedule, you're going to have to offer some sort of discount, and you need some type of a cushion in there, bill at the higher rate. Generate those new invoices, and then those will be the invoices that you'll be submitting to GSA. And you cannot submit invoices and or contracts that are older than 2 years. So it's always going to be within a 2-year frame. But I love the GSA program. I mean, 8A is my favorite, but GSA is definitely a strong second, because after 8A is done, term's only 9 years, a lot of my clients will come back and go, get me onto the GSA schedule because 8A is done, or I don't qualify for 8A. What else do I have when those are the 2 most popular contracting vehicles that the federal government likes to utilize to award their contracts? I'm out because I don't qualify for 8A, or I've already done my 9 years. I can't get back in. GSA schedule is always the next best thing. All right. And just keep in mind that large business also sells their widgets on GSA schedule, because it's not for small businesses only. It's for everyone. So just keep that in mind, that the competition is high. All right, these are some of the different mass categories, and that's a multiple award schedule. It's the name of what they call the different categories. And these are just some of the most popular. And I think I grabbed them all, but these are the ones that you're going to see a lot. And of course, the one that is the most popular, which used to be called IT 70, is information technology category. So a lot of IT type services are purchased via the GSA schedule. All right. So if you're in IT, typically you're going to have one of the SBA certifications, 8A, Hubzone, woman-owned, or veterans. In addition to that, you're probably going to also hold a GSA schedule because a lot of purchasing is done via the GSA schedule. So you can learn more about these with the previous link I gave on the other slide to see what the descriptions are of each of these. All right. Next, let's jump into 8A. All right. And I need to do a quick time check here. All right, we're good. So 8A is pretty much a business development. Well, not pretty much, it is a business development program. So it's self-marketing. You're hitting the pavement. You're doing all the work all on your own. There is no one there holding your hand and you're teaching you how to fish, kind of a situation. You're in it. That's part of the reason why with 8A, they want you to be in business for at least 2 years. You could get a waiver after 1 year, but again, typically they want to see 2 years because they believe you're ready to roll. Like you really don't need a whole lot of hand holding on that, and that you know what it's like to do business with the federal government. All right. The term of the program, as I mentioned previously, is 9 years. Once you're in, you're in. Once you're out, and that's it. Because of COVID, they recently changed a law that said any firm that was admitted to the program by a certain date backwards would get 1 year added to their 8A certification term. So any firm, I think it's February, something like that. So if they were approved in the 8A program February 2020 backwards, they could have 1 year extended onto their 9 years. Every other firm that got into the program after that date, the term is still 9 years. So if you're hearing that the 8A program extended the program by 1 year, it's only for a certain group of firms. It's not open up to the whole world, and it's definitely not open up for anyone that's applying for the first time. All right. So again, the first 4 years is your developmental stage. That's where you're going out. You're learning everything you can about what it's like to do business with the federal government. You're virtually shaking hands and kissing babies. You're getting to know. You're letting the whole world know I'm 8A. You're leveraging it. You're pushing it. You're just putting it out there. That's what happens the first 4 years. You pretty much go hard. Now, the last 5 years is your transitional stage. Now your mindset is pretty much changing. It's changing to, now I'm about to transcend out of the 8A program. I need to learn to stand on my own 2 feet without 8A contracts. So SBA calls that beginning of year 5, your transitional stage. So from year 5 down to year 9, year 5, they go, we want at least 15% of your total sales. And this is total sales from all sources before you pay any bills, take off any cost of goods. So all of that, before any of that comes off the top, your total sales numbers, they want to see at least 15% of that in year 5 to be non-8A set aside work. By year 9, they want to see at least 55% of your total sales be non-8A business. Monica, why impose these goals? What do you care? Because we want you to survive after 8A. And if you are too 8A heavy, once you graduate from the program, you're unable to receive any 8A contracts. What will you do if all of your contracts are 8A? When those contracts end, you have no more work because we've allowed you, we meaning the SBA, to have so many 8As that now when you leave out, you can't survive. You don't survive. You know, I started working for the SBA in '89, and I started my company in 2011, and I resigned in 2012. During my time with SBA, I would have on average about 150 8A firms that my job was to service. Those that were in the transitional stage, I was really hard on them, because there were too many firms that were leaving my portfolio and graduating that were just unheard of a year later or 2 years later. So just keep that in mind. SBA will allow you to do your thing the first 4 years, but come year 5, they're going to slow you down a little bit, and they really want you to strongly consider more non-8A work because you need to survive, because you need to survive after 8A. So just keep that in mind. This is for your own good. All right. Eligibility. So in order to apply for the 8A program, you need to be socially disadvantaged. I'll define that in just a second. Economically disadvantaged. I'll define that as well. Must have majority ownership. Now, this could be two or more individuals. It could be 3, but that just means everyone needs to qualify. But the typical structure that SBA sees is either the applicant owns 100% of the company that's seeking 8A certification, or it's a 51-49. Where the 51% owner eligibility is based on that person. But you must be a US citizen. Permanent resident would also work as well. You just need to provide documentation for that. That individual on whom eligibility is based must control the business, manage and control it on a full-time basis. No outside employment. And regardless of what you might have heard, there is no waiver for this requirement. There never has been. You cannot have and been issued a W-2 and or 1099 personally in your name if you are seeking 8A certification. And if you have and you plan on resigning, you'll need to resign. And professionally, in my opinion, I would wait about 8-9 months before you put in your 8A application. You want to show that you've been running the business on a full-time basis with no outside employment, but you're not going to be able to resign in January and apply in February. That will not work. But again, this is one of those programs where they are very strict on no outside employment. Monica is not saying to you, go quit your job. Not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying to you is that 8A may not be for you right now. And then this bullet here goes into must be a small business as defined by your NAICS code. You can pronounce that Naics Code, Naics Code, NAICS code, however you want. But at the end of the day, that's the code. Your primary determines whether or not you're small. I know we all have many codes, but under 8A, you're only certified under one code, and it's your primary. And that is the code, primary meaning that is the code that you generate the majority of your revenues under. That's what primary means. So if you're not sure what your primary code is, if you have a SAM.gov profile, which we'll go through a little bit later on what that is, the word yes is indicated next to the code you told the SAM system that was your primary. And again, it's looking at your financials. It's the code that you generated the majority of your revenue under. So keep that in mind. SBA will not certify you under every code that you have. They will not. And what we call that is, if it's not your primary, it's your secondary. SBA does not certify firms in the 8A program under their secondary codes, only their primary. And then lastly, the 2-year in business rule. So the waiver pretty much is if you've been in business for 1 year, as evidenced by federal tax returns showing revenue generated, you could seek the 2-year in business waiver. But if you've been in business for 1 year and you have not filed a tax return, you cannot seek the waiver. If you've been in business for 1 year, you've had little to no revenues in that 1 year, you cannot seek the waiver. So the waiver is one of those very special criteria that you need to meet. It's not a just, I've been in business 1 year, I'm going to go for the waiver. It doesn't work that way. And I believe in this PowerPoint, either in this one or in the all-day class, I provide a list of what those waiver questions are. It may not be in this short webinar. All right, but if it's not in here and you need those, just email me and let me know. And Terry, I see your question. I'll be with you in just a second. All right, so social disadvantage. So social disadvantage is, it's race-based. It's whatever your nationality is, it's whatever your race is, pretty much, all right? We all know, like I have in green, you must be a US citizen. But in addition to that, automatically to be deemed socially disadvantaged, you must fit into one of these categories. All right, if you do not fit into one of these categories for application purposes, you would need to prove what they call, I am socially disadvantaged. I'm a white woman. My business is in construction, which is white male dominated. I have a story to tell. If you can, you're pretty much going to write that up as a narrative and provide any type of supporting documentation, incidents, anything that has occurred to show that you've been discriminated against personally and that has negatively affected you being able to run your business effectively and profitably, then yes, it is possible for you to still get into the 8A program. There are thousands of white women and men in the 8A program. It is not for Black people. It is not for Hispanic people. Congress does not have a program of that type. I've been doing this for a really long time, and I've probably heard it all from it. It's an affirmative action program, and it's this, that, and the third. It has never been any of those things. It's for any majority owner on whom eligibility is based that can prove social disadvantage. But notice what I said earlier. It's I've been personally discriminated against, and this is how it has negatively affected me running my business. Notice the connection. So it cannot be I personally have been discriminated against. It started in elementary school and it went through high school. That won't work. Not if that's all you have. It must be a direct connection to the running and operating of your business. It cannot all just be personal. All right. And during the all-day class, I actually provide a little bit more information about that, along with some examples of and samples of different things that other people have spoken about during their journey of proving social disadvantage. So in addition to every applicant being socially disadvantaged, you must also be economically disadvantaged. This is not an either or. You must meet both requirements. So let's take a look and see what the definition of economic disadvantage is. It's all about your assets minus your liabilities. It's your personal net worth. That's what being economically disadvantaged is in SBA's mindset. So you would take every asset you have, total it up. Take every liability you have, do the same. The difference between those two numbers is your personal net worth. What SBA does allow for, which is at the bottom of the slide, is for you to not include three things. So if your question is, well, can I include this? Don't go by the list of what you can or cannot include, can include. Go by what you cannot. So that means if I don't need to include equity in my primary residence, equity in my business, and funds that are in my retirement account, as long as the prepayment penalty for early withdrawal is 10% or more, these are my only three exclusions. That means everything else is included. So I get these really long emails and questions. Well, is this included? Is that? Let's not go by that list is too long. Let's look at what you don't need to include. And that means if it's not one of these three things, everything else is included no matter what it is. Now, we'll give you a couple exceptions. One, any asset that's in your spouse's name, that is your spouse's, or you two are sharing that liability, you're sharing that asset, you would divide that in half. So you wouldn't carry the whole thing. You would carry only half of what that asset is or what that liability is. So just divide it in half. And then also when you have things like 529 college plans for your kids, it's in their name, but your name's on there too. Those are not included either. But pretty much everything else is included. So again, I get that question a lot of, wanting this long laundry list of, what can be included and what can't. Just keep in mind, you really only get three exclusions. If you're married, you get to divide those assets and liabilities in half, which will further reduce your personal net worth. And the limit is $750,000. It cannot exceed $750,000 after the three exclusions. All right. And let me go over to Terry's question. If I can pull it over here. What about unemployment insurance? Does that impact your ability to apply for 8A if you collect unemployment? Unemployment means at some point you were employed. So now you're not employed. So it goes to the fact that, do you still have a job? If you do, that's outside employment. It's strictly prohibited. You cannot apply for 8A. Another scenario, you were employed, you were laid off, whatever the case may be. Now you are receiving unemployment, and I don't currently work anyplace else. But I have my business and I'm now running it on a full-time basis. From the date of the employment ending, and between that date and when you go to actually apply for your 8A, my suggestion was wait about 8 months. And you mentioned earlier, you've been in business for about 1 year. So during that year, not sure if you were employed or not employed, it sounds like you were. So you had outside employment. You cannot apply for 8A at this time. It would not be a good idea. It would not make for a strong application. So I would wait. But again, I would start from the date of your unemployment and wait about 8 months before you apply for 8A. Then I have someone else that is putting the contact here, a question here. Is there a cap on adjusted gross income? Not really. I know what you mean by that, and let's get to that right now. So that's actually a really good question. It's my next slide, as a matter of fact. So part of the economic disadvantage is that it's 3-tier. So one is your personal net worth, your assets minus your liabilities cannot exceed 750. We have two other things here. Your personal income, the average over 3 years, cannot exceed $350,000. This is what I think you mean by the cap on adjusted gross income. They take a 3-year average. They're going to take your total compensation from all sources for the past 3 years. So we're now in 2021. 2020 taxes have not been filed yet. Most accountants don't even have the software to even complete the return yet. So in this case, you would take 17, 18, and 19, total compensation for each of those years, add them together, divide by 3. That average cannot exceed $350,000. All right. And there are no exceptions to these. So if you're even $1 over, you are deemed not economically disadvantaged, and you must meet all 3. So in addition to the average 350, the average compensation over 3 years not exceeding 350, you also, your personal net worth cannot exceed $750,000, and your total assets cannot exceed $6 million. This does include the equity in your business. So for calculating your personal net worth, which is that $750,000 number, the equity in the business is not included. But when calculating total assets, it is included. So if your business is doing really well, you own a good amount, there's equity, that equity attaches over to you personally as the owner, you will need to claim that as part of your asset. And again, the total for that is $6 million. These caps are to enter the program, as well as after you enter the program, same limit. The only thing that will change is the personal income. They'll put you as an 8A participant on a tier. If your business makes $1 million, your compensation can be this. If your business makes up to $2 million, your compensation. So that's the only thing that will change, to give you as the owner opportunity to grow as your firm does well. All right. And I mentioned this before about being at the bottom, about having your spouse's assets and liabilities, just pretty much divide them in half. You claim half, they claim half. All right. These are some of the benefits I mentioned. I touched on this just briefly about the 4 million. So the cap, this is the benefit of the 8A program, why most firms go for 8A, which is they're able to win sole source set aside contracts under the 8A program, as long as the contracting officer keeps the dollar value base, which is year 1. That's what the year 1 is called. It's called your base year plus all option years. Cannot exceed 4 million for services and 7 million for manufacturing. That's the biggest benefit of why companies go for 8A certification. All right. And then another benefit is the ability to joint venture. As an 8A firm, large business wants to joint venture with you. A lot of times they'll, look in SAM and find 8A firms, like just pretty much just looking at what the full list looks like and then reaching out. So they typically do that with firms that are currently 8A certified. It's just the end all to be all of certifications. Like if you're going to get a certification, if you qualify, 8A is the one, but only get the 8A when you're ready. Why? Because there's a time limit. You only get 9 years. Okay. Things to remember. 1, not more than 70% of your firm's revenues can be generated from one customer. Just like that. No outside employment. This rule is hard and steadfast. There is no waiver. If you have 2 clients and you run the percentages between the 2, and one of those clients, you've generated more revenue than the other, and that number happens to be over 70%, you do not qualify for 8A certification. 8A wants you to be diversified when you enter the program and to maintain that throughout the term of the program. They do not allow firms in the program with 1 client. That just cannot happen. All right. So just keep that in mind. Not more than 70%. Stay as far away from 70% as you can. And to be honest with you, 8A or not, you should do that anyway. You should not be having all of your eggs in one basket. That is just not smart. Because if anything ever happens with that one client, what will you do? Next is your total firms from all sources generated under your primary code, as indicated on your SAM profile. Business can't be operating at a loss during the past 3 years or in current interim. 2020 just ended, so we're now in interim 2021. So let's say you were going to apply for 8A at this particular time. Your financials are good, you've made lots of money, but when I look at that very bottom number, you've got a negative net income. You cannot be operating at a loss and get into the 8A program, irregardless of what that unusual circumstance was during that year, which made your income be negative. SBA won't care, because what they say to that is, if you're at a negative net income, I allow you into the 8A program. How will you fund a contract? You can't fund a contract when your financials tell me you have $0. You don't have a line of credit. You don't have a bank loan. You've got nothing, but yet you expect me to. They won't do it. So that's another one of those hard and steadfast rules. And then third is we've kind of, beat this dead horse, which is the outside employment. You can't have it. It's just simple as that. I've been packaging 8A applications since 1989. I have never been able to get an application approved where the applicant had outside employment. And that's a never. I've never been able to get one through. All right. Now I did put over here as a little extra, evenings and weekends. So if your outside employment is evenings, which is after the government is in operation, that means they're 9 to 5, 6 to 3, government's closed, but you work a night job and you might work this job maybe on the weekends only, you might have a shot. Still difficult because it's still outside employment, but you would really need to explain that. Next is you can't be delinquent on any personal or business debt. You need to be on some type of payment arrangement, something. Judgments, liens, bankruptcies, levies against you, that goes to character, and 8A won't let you in. Like, character is extremely important to them. It is an eligibility requirement that the applicant on whom eligibility is based possesses good character. So it's really important that you have that. Next is there will be an FBI background investigation conducted on the applicant on whom eligibility is based. So if I'm packaging your application, I'll ask you very direct questions. Have you ever been convicted of anything other than a minor traffic violation? And you lie to me, it won't matter. Because once I submit that application to SBA, they're going to pull a FBI background report on you from the day you were born up until the date that they were asked to pull the report. Everything in between, things that have been expunged, things that have been removed. This is an all-inclusive report. Everything populates. So if you're outsourcing and hiring a company to package your 8A application for you, you need to understand that whether you are honest with that consultant or not, it's going to pop up on the FBI report. So you want to always just get those things out in the open, and you want to inform SBA of those situations and provide all documentation relating to them with the application. It's really important that you do that. You must be able to show, yes, I've had some challenges in the past. I've since overcome them. These situations were so long ago. Tell your story, but you'll need to do that. But if you leave something out, if you do not mention this situation that you were told was expunged, and when you pull the report, it doesn't even show up anymore, and you think you're going to get away with that, it's not going to work. It will pop up on the report. It'll go against you for character with your 8A application. And that's pretty much unfixable because you didn't disclose it initially. This is a full disclosure application. Leave nothing out, no matter how small. It's better for you to tell them than them to find out and question you as to why you did not inform them originally. This is just one of those certifications. All right, next, the more customers you have, the better. This is a volumes game. SBA would rather you have 5 small clients than 2 large or 3 large. They want you to diversify. So I always say, go after every contract opportunity that you can, no matter how small, as long as you're not going to lose money. If you're not going to, even if you're going to just break even, you need those contracts to do what? To leverage them collectively to win the next contract. So you want to go for it. All right. So again, the more the better. All personal and business tax liability must be paid or must be on a payment arrangement. If any of your tax returns, and part of the application, you'll be providing last 3 years of business tax returns, last 3 years of personal, minimum is 2 years each. If any of those years show money owed to the IRS, you'll need to provide proof of that payment arrangement along with copies of all payments made to date. So SB is very strict about this. This is a federal program. They cannot allow you to federally owe money or be delinquent. I'm sorry, you can owe money as long as you are in a payment arrangement to pay the IRS back, to pay the federal government back. But if you're just not paying and you're delinquent and they're levying, it just won't work. All right. And then lastly, if your spouse is involved in the business, they will take a deeper dive into what their role is, but keep in mind, inform your spouse if you're married that I'm applying for 8A. Part of the application process is all spouses must disclose every single asset and liability that they have. So just like you have to disclose it, so does your spouse, even if they have nothing at all to do with the business. So that's a conversation you want to have with your significant other prior to going down this road. So if your spouse refuses to provide their information and you're not legally separated or divorced, you will not be able to apply for 8A. Your spouse is involved in the personal net worth section of this application. They want to see what their assets and liabilities look like, take a look at yours, and they want to make sure that there's no transferring from you to them in order for you to lower your personal net worth. There's no way for them to make that determination, they mean in SBA, unless you disclose your spouse's financial information. Yes, I know they have nothing to do with the business. They have no ownership. They don't even know what's going on. It doesn't matter. Simply because they're a spouse, they must disclose. All right. So let them know ahead of time. So that's your 8A. So let's jump into woman-owned. So the woman-owned small business program was created back in 2011. So we waited a really long time to have a gender-based program. That's just not something that's been done on the federal side. They typically shy away from something like that. But finally, the women got a program that's just for us. If you are a woman, you own at least 51% in your company, along with some other eligibility requirements that we'll go through in just a second, you're pretty much ready to roll. So now, like as I mentioned on the slides towards the beginning, you can push to have your customer set aside opportunities into the woman-owned small business program if this is a certification that you hold. One of the things I wanted to update you with on this slide is that as of July 15th, the certification process changed. All right. And so what they've done is they've created a new system called beta.certified.sba.gov. I know they made it so long and difficult for us to have to type all that into the web browser. But this is the new website for WSB applications. If you're participating in this webinar and you previously received your WSB because you submitted your application in certified.sba, that is no longer valid. You must now reapply in the new system, which is beta.certified. Your information that's sitting in certified.sba did not migrate over into this new system. So this system has no idea that you received certification previously. It's like starting, it's not like it is, your application from scratch. I personally have to do it myself. I've started the process. The system is fairly easy to use. It's similar to certified.sba, but it's different in some areas, not different bad, just a little bit different, but I need to finish mine. And so with you, it's just going to take you some time to get it all in there. But what I will tell you is that the information that you uploaded in certified.sba is still there. That's going to be there until sometime later in this year. But at some point, it won't be. So if you want to make things easier on yourself, go into certified.sba, download all the documents that you placed into that system, and then re-upload them into beta.certified. But again, the old system is out. This is the new system. Okay. And then the other thing I wanted to bring to your attention is that the last bullet, you are not required to utilize a third-party certifier to put together your WSB application. You don't have to hire a consultant. It's not mandated. What SBA did for this program is they certified a few organizations to say, if those firms just want someone else to do it, they could either hire their own consultant, or they could also utilize one of these 4 organizations, which have been approved by SBA to package the application for them. All right, you have choices, but I wanted to bring to your attention that when you see this, if you go to sba.gov and you're reading all the information about the WSB program, don't think that you must hire someone. You do not. You could literally go into beta.certify, create your user ID and password, and it'll prompt you, upload your information. No need to hire anyone if you choose to do it yourself. And no, that is not self-certification. That is you applying for your EDWSB or your WSB. If you hire one of these organizations, that account will still need to be created with your user ID and password. It's just that instead of you sitting there uploading the information and answering all the questions, you've hired someone else to do that part for you. But pretty much you'll still need to create the user ID and password in the beta.certify system, whether you hire someone or whether you do it yourself, okay? Didn't want you to think that the certification is different just because you went in and created the account on your own, all right? This gives you some of the eligibility requirements. So, well, not really, it's eligibility, and it's also a little bit about the program. So let's just do a top-down approach here. I kind of like my top down. So in the first row over here in green, you have a link to the Naics codes that are associated with this program. This program is Naics code driven. So you must have a particular Naics code in order to apply. It's not enough to be 51% or more owner of the company and you are a woman. Not enough. You must be in a particular industry. So this is industry related. So I've given you a link to all of the codes for the WSB program, as well as for the EDWSB program. So you will simply look at the codes, try to find one. If you find none, that means your industry is not appropriate for this certification, even if you meet all other requirements. Again, it's Naics code driven. The second, under 8A, a customer can sole source a contract to you. We meet, I love you, I like you, I think you'll be a great fit for this cybersecurity contract. I kept the dollar value, base year plus option years under 4 million. I can sole source those types of opportunities to you all day, every day. That's 8A. Under woman-owned small business, yes, there's a sole source, but after they invoke the rule of 2. So that means for the WSB and the EDWSB, I must have at least 2 companies that can provide those services, at least 2. So with those 2, I will then make my selection. But what I'm not able to do is just sole source that opportunity to you right off the bat. I cannot. I must create competition. And in creating competition, I must be able to state in my contracting file that I attempted to find at least 2 companies that actually provide these same services, and then I've made my selection from there. So again, you will see something that says woman-owned small business, sole source, sole source. Sole source only comes into connection when and only when the contracting officer first invokes the rule of 2. And then if she cannot find a second and you're the only resource that can provide those services and or products, then they can sole source that opportunity to you. All right. And then as you see in the last, the limits are the same. The limits are 4 million for WSB set aside contracts, for EDWSB set aside contracts, to keep them under that sole source function, meaning I'm choosing you after I invoke the rule of 2, must be 4 million. Base plus all option years cannot exceed 4 million. All right. And then for manufacturing is 6.5. And these are some of the eligibility requirements when you're seeking the WSB certification. So pretty much how this goes is you must be small. We know that's based on your code. The individual that's applying for the woman-owned small business program must be, they must own unconditionally 51% of the company, as well as be a U.S. citizen. That individual must manage the day-to-day operations of the business, must make the long-term decisions, should hold the highest officer position and be compensated more than anyone else in the building, must work full-time in the business, no outside employment. This is another one of those no outside employment type of situations. Just keep in mind, they can be a little bit more lenient under this program versus 8A. It's a flat no. You just cannot. Not unless we're talking an evenings, weekend situation and you can thoroughly explain that, how that works and how it doesn't affect your ability to run your company during the hours in which the government is open. But under this one, they can be a little bit more lenient with that. Can Monica clearly say to you that yes, without a shadow of a doubt, that they'll, with outside employment, they might let you in? I can't say that. It's on a case-by-case basis. You need to write up your narrative and explain to SBA how you're able to make this business work. Operating in the federal space it's a full-time deal. It's full-time. It's all day, every day. It's grinding it out every single day. So to be splitting my time between that and something else, I just don't know how effective I could really operate my business when I'm pulled in so many different directions. That's why the no outside employment rule exists, is to protect you from yourself, to be honest with you, to keep you from biting off more than you can chew and not really making a success because you're unable to devote the full time that's necessary. Federal procurement is a beast. Trust me, it's going to take you, it's going to take all of your time, all of your energy. It's definitely not a hobby or a side job. All right. So again, they might be a little bit more lenient with you. And then I mentioned this already when Terry asked, there is no time in business requirement. All right. In addition to the slide we just went over, which was for the Woman-Owned Small Business Program, which is WOSB, if you want to also seek the designation of EDWOSB, which is Economic Disadvantaged Woman-Owned Small Business, you must meet all the eligibility criteria from the previous slide that we went over, as well as this one. These limits are identical to 8A. So if you want to be deemed economically disadvantaged, your personal net worth cannot exceed 750, same 3 exclusions. Your adjusted gross income average over 3 years cannot exceed 350, same as 8A. And then your total assets cannot exceed 6 million, identical to the 8A program. All right. Benefits, pretty much it's the same as with 8A. The ability for the ability for set aside. The ability to have a cybersecurity contract, which was once full and open. You're speaking to the contracting officer. It's under 4 million. She's willing to consider placing it into the WSB program. And that's a certification that you hold. There you go. You know, that's the biggest benefit of the program. Okay. So now we've spoken about Gsa Schedule, we've spoken about 8A, and we just finished up with Woman-Owned Small Business. Let's jump into Hubzone. All right, so Hubzone is about employment, empowerment, and enterprise. This is your I'm placing my business into a underutilized area. No, not the a high crime area, not what they mean at all, just in an underutilized area. In an area where there are not a lot of businesses, meaning there's not a lot of, the economy in that neighborhood, in that area is not where it should be. But if I place my business there and I hire employees to work there, that's Hubzone. That's completely what Hubzone is about. It's about us moving our businesses or renting or purchasing office space in these neighborhoods, hiring people who work in these neighborhoods who during their lunch hour walk out and they spend money. That is helping an underutilized area be able to revitalize. All right. So that's what Hubzone is all about. And the program is, has gotten a bad rap for these Hubzone areas or high crime. It's the complete opposite. There are lots of different neighborhoods that are not high crime that are deemed Hubzone. It's based on the economy of the neighborhood. All right. And so here we want to talk about the fact that Hubzone they want you to, by placing your company, leasing space, or purchasing a building in a Hubzone area, you're going to increase employment. You're going to stimulate capital investment in those areas. You're going to empower communities through economic leveraging and the ability to be able to multiply the number of not just the revenue, but the people that are in that area. And that's what you want. Like you want to be able to do that, but you have to physically be in that neighborhood to be able to do that. So this is part of the reason why with Hubzone, virtual offices are not accepted. To have a virtual office or a post office box in a Hubzone area is not helping to do any of this. It doesn't increase employment. It doesn't stimulate the capital investment. This is why virtual spaces are not allowed in the Hubzone program. The physical location must be identified, and at least 35% of your total employees, which reside in a Hubzone, must work out of that space. All right. This is a slide on Hubzone's kind of revamped their program a little bit. They've made a lot of cuts and changes, all good stuff. So I've copied and pasted some of that information for you so that you'll have it, so that you kind of know where the program is right now. All right. And you can also visit sba.gov, type in Hubzone in the search box, and get all the other information as well. But for me, this was the most important changes I wanted you to know in regards to Hubzone. So you can read this at your leisure. Let's walk into some eligibility for the Hubzone program. So for Hubzone, you need to be small. Like with all the other programs, except for the Gsa Schedule, you need to be a small business. These programs are for small businesses only. Next, at least 51% needs to be owned by a U.S. citizen. As you see, for the SBA programs, it's the same eligibility requirements from one program to the next with just a few changes in between. With Hubzone, it's based on your principal office location. So that principal office, which is the office where the majority of your employees operate out of, that's what's deemed your principal office. So I've had some questions in regards to, I have multiple locations, Monica. I've got an office in Maryland. I have an office in DC. I've also got an office in Delaware. Which one is my principal office? It's the office where the majority of your employees operate out of that space. When you go to submit your Hubzone application, that is the location you deem to be your principal office. The beauty of that is, once you receive Hubzone certification, the principal office receives a designation, and every other office that you have does as well. They're all automatically deemed to be Hubzone offices once you get the principal office certified. So you only need to get one location approved, and then all the other locations that you have that are for your company are also designated Hubzone, even if they're not located in the Hubzone. That's just how the program works. If you need to find out if your location is in a Hubzone and or if your employee is in a Hubzone, here's the link to the Hubzone map. So pretty much when you go to the map, you type in the address, you hit enter, the system automatically tells you whether or not that location is in a Hubzone. All right, but that's a criteria. There is no waiver for what we're going through right now. There's no waiver. There's no waiver for the principal office. It must be. You must have at least 35% working out of that space. Next is we go with employment. At least 35% of your total employees must reside in any Hubzone. So you would utilize the map, you would take the address that's on that individual's driver's license, you would type that address in and see if that particular employee is located in a Hubzone. If you have 10 employees, at least 35% of those 10 must reside in any Hubzone. Does not need to be the same as the principal office location. So I could have I'm in Maryland, so I could have my Hubzone office in College Park, Maryland, but my employee lives in Baltimore City, which is also, her neighborhood is also deemed a Hubzone. I meet the requirement. So the employee does not need to physically live or reside in that particular area as the principal office. It can be different, but the 35% is hard and steadfast. It's 35%, no exceptions. Hubzone doesn't have waivers in this program. You either meet the requirement or you don't. And that employee, those employees who are, this is with the 35%, at least 35% of my, sticking with my example, 10 employees reside in any Hubzone. They also need to work a minimum of 40 hours per month. So part of the application process is that you include payroll records, and you have to show that that employee's been working at least 40 hours a month. So that's part of the application process. So it's not enough that they reside in the Hubzone. They need to work out of the principal office location the majority of the time, at least 40 hours a month. 40 hours a month is not a lot. You look at the scheme of things. Typically people work 40 hours a week. So now we're just saying 40 hours a month. This is a simple screenshot of the map itself, okay? And again, a lot of these things that we're going through now during the all-day session that we're going to have, this is a webinar that we offer just to kind of let you know what we do during the all-day. And the all-day, we click on website links, we visit them, we conduct research, we find out who procures what we offer. Like, we do so many more things during the all day. This is just a taste of what the all day subject matters are going to look like. And then next we have here the benefits, and you'll see a lot of repeat from one SBA program to another. They weren't very creative with their programs. It was pretty much a copy and paste from one program to the next. So the first two slides we've already talked about. You've got your limits and the ability to set aside. What's different with this one is with the Hubzone program only, they offer something called a PEP. So a PEP is a price evaluation preference. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and read this one for you. For those acquisitions conducted using full and open competition, contracting officer can apply a 10% price evaluation preference, a PEP. They shall give offers from Hubzone small business concerns a price evaluation preference by adding a factor of 10% to all offers in most situations. This is not done for any other program, but notice this is for full and open competition only, not Hubzone set-asides. All right. And then next is, of course, one of the benefits, which is for all of the programs, is the ability to subcontract. Our last certification we're going to discuss today is the Veterans Program. So, of course, with this particular program, you must be a vet. Pretty much that's how it works. And how do you prove that you are? The Veterans Administration has given you documentation that shows you are a vet on record with them. That's a document that you will be providing with this program. Now, we'll give a disclaimer. Not sure if you're on LinkedIn or who you're connected with, or if you're paying attention to what's going on in industry, but SBA just approved a new veterans program. So the program I'm going through right now is not the new one. This is the old one. The new one will be structured like 8A, Hubzone, Woman-Owned. It'll be an actual official veteran certification that you submit an application for, the process, and SBA will be taking over managing, at least Congress is trying to get them to take it over, taking over managing that program. Whereas right now, under the old veteran certification, you're going through VA to get certified. That's all about the change. It's been, I believe it's been approved, and they're now just working out what that's going to look like. But officially, there's going to be an actual veterans set-aside program that will mimic 8A, Hubzone, and Woman-Owned. That is absolutely fabulous for veterans. Not that this program is not good, but it doesn't stand equally against the other three. Now it will. So I will update, Priscilla, I will update my slides to show the new program once the rules come out about what that looks like. But for now, I at least want to share that the veterans program, the old one, still exists. You could still go down this road while you're waiting for the new regulations to come out, but you're about to get something, those that are veterans that are participating today, something new and exciting. It's going to be absolutely wonderful. I personally cannot wait because I've been waiting for this, because this program is just, if I'm a contracting officer and I have to choose between this program and 8A, I'm going to go 8A every day. Whereas with the new veterans program that's coming out, I really have a shot at having a certification that helps me leverage to win business. So with the veteran certification, this again is the old program. The criteria is the same. Must be small, need to have your sam.gov profile, need to be 51% or more ownership. But here's the caveat. Here's something extra with this particular program. With this program, it allows for service disabled vets to also participate. So under this program, it allows for you to designate the day-to-day running and operating of the business to someone else. Whereas with the other programs that we went over, you are the one that is supposed to be managing, operating the business on a full-time basis, not designating it to someone else. On this one, you could actually designate someone. You would just need to inform VA of who that individual is, and then they'll work with both of you. This is the only program that allows you to designate such a heavy lifting responsibility, which should be yours as the majority owner, to someone else. And so that's a great benefit. Hopefully under the new program, they still allow that as well. I'm pretty sure that they will. And then I've given you a link here to all of the regulations in regards to this program, as well as to the designation of the day-to-day responsibilities to someone else. And that's called control regulations. All right. Wanted to make sure that you had that. And then these are, we've gone through this already. We're back to benefits. I told you SBA was not creative. They simply did a copy and paste. Pretty much that's all they did. The limits are the same for $1 million, 6.5 million for manufacturing, and of course the ability for the contracting officers to set it aside. Okay. And then here we just have some of the thresholds. And Priscilla, I know I've said it like a million times. This is not under 150. It should be under 250. I keep meaning to change the slide and I keep forgetting. I've got to do that today. So we know, as we discussed at the beginning of the PowerPoint presentation, that the limit for small business set aside is $250,000 or less. It should be set aside for small business. So this should be 250 and not 150. All right. And the benefit of all of the SBA programs that we looked at is the ability to joint venture. All right. You found an opportunity. It's too big for you. You want to team. Teaming is prime sub. Someone's going to be the prime's going to hire the sub, and together you're going to perform the services. That's not a joint venture. A joint venture is all parties of the joint venture are deemed prime. And everyone's equally responsible for whatever their lane is. So when you take 100% of the work, we say that if it's going to be an 8A joint venture that's created, the 8A firm, who is the company that holds that particular certification, must perform at least 40% of the work because it's a 8A joint venture. And they must own in that joint venture entity legally at least 51%. That's how it goes. If it's a WOSB or an EDWSB joint venture, same thing. 40% of the work must be done by the WSB firm. They must own at least 51% of the joint venture entity legally. So that's how these programs work. So when you create a joint venture, think to yourself, what type of joint venture am I creating? Is it an 8A joint venture to bid on 8A set-aside contracts? Is it a WOSB joint venture to bid on those types? Is it a Hubzone joint venture? Is it a veterans joint venture? Or is it a joint venture to bid on all different types of small business set aside? It depends on the type of joint venture, which depends on the type of opportunity you're going to bid on. One thing I want to bring to your attention is the last bullet, and that is that it used to be that when you form a joint venture, let's just stick with the example of 8A joint venture, legally you were only allowed to be awarded 3 contracts within a 2-year period. Recently, the law changed right around the time when they created the veterans program, and right around the time when they extended, current 80 participants who have been in a program for a certain period of time, extended the term by 1 year. All of this happened as part of that same law. It's like a package deal. They threw in all these wonderful changes. With that being said, it's now unlimited awards within a 2-year period. And the clock starts after the joint venture wins its first contract. So when you bid under a joint venture, whether it's an 8A or WSB or Hubzone, et cetera, and you don't win, it does not count against you. It only counts starting with the first award. All right. But this is wonderful news, because that 3 and 2 rule was hurting those joint venture relationships where they were finding a lot of opportunities to bid on, but they were unable to because they were no more than 3 and 2. They had to wait for the 2 years to pass, and then the clock would start over again, and then they would get a fresh 3. Now you don't need to worry about that. It's unlimited joint venture awards in a 2-year period. And you can do that across all different types of programs. And one of the beauties of joint venture is you can team up with large business. But you can only team up with large business if they are your mentor, which leads me into this slide. They must be your mentor. If you're looking to joint venture with Lockheed, Booz Allen, Simmons, et cetera, IBM, these are large businesses. They're not small. When you're bidding on small business set-asides, the 2 of you collectively would exceed the size standard associated with the Naics Code for that contract. This is why trying to formalize a joint venture with the large business to bid on the small business set-aside does not work. It only works if that large business officially becomes your SBA mentor. So SBA has a program called the All Small Business Mentor Protege Program. The 8A program used to have its own Mentor Protege program. They recently dissolved that program. So now 8A firms will submit their requests under the All Small Business. So now there is only one SBA Mentor Protege program, and it's called the All Small Business Mentor Protege program, where you can create a mentor protege relationship with any type of company, another small business, an 8A, a Hubzone, a woman-owned, someone that holds a Gsa schedule, or even a large business. And when you do that, and then you, after the approval of the mentor protege, you then go and formalize a joint venture. That joint venture, because they are your approved mentor, every joint venture that you create will automatically be deemed small. This is why you will hear firms go, yes, we're going to get our mentor protege approved first, and then we're going to create our joint venture and bid on stuff. This is why they do that. Because if you don't have an official mentor protege, then size limitations will fall under for you for the joint venture facet of that, which is the actual bidding vehicle. You can't bid on something via a mentor protege relationship. To bid on any opportunity, you must form the joint venture. That's the joint venture is a bidding vehicle. Mentor protege is not. So again, this just gives you some of the different areas that SBA says you can receive assistance in. So you say to yourself, why would Booz Allen or Lockheed want to, joint venture with me? Or actually not joint venture, but be my mentor. Go down here to the last bullet. The program allows for the protege to sell up to 40% of their business to their mentor for the purpose of generating working capital, etc. But to give it away, SBA typically doesn't like to approve those types of requests. Why are you just giving away 40%? But when Lockheed and Booz, and trust me, all of the big dogs are fully aware of this little regulatory thing here, which is that you have the ability to sell to them 40%. So as we all know, we're in business to make money. And unfortunately, there are not a lot of people out there that do things out of the goodness of their heart. They always try to find that underlining, what can I get out of it? It's just the nature of the industry that we're in. That's federal procurement. That's government, whether state, local, city, county. It's just how it is. This is the space in which we operate. So when you say to yourself, why would they want to? That's one reason, is that they're able to try and get part of that 40% or all of it, to help you out from a financial standpoint, especially if you need it. And then secondly, if you hold a certification, large businesses not hold an 8A certification or a Hubzone or woman-owned or veterans, and they're looking to bid in those types of contracts, they might want to joint venture with you. Becoming your mentor might be a benefit for them. So those are the two biggest benefits as to why a larger company, bigger, better, stronger, would be willing to partner with you who's much smaller. This is why. 40%, as well as the ability to bid on those set-aside contracts that they don't qualify for. All right? Doing business with the government. And this is where the all-day session just gets crazy, because we really dive into this. So one of the things about, doing business, with the federal government is that you need to know what your Naics codes are. You need to know what they are, and you need to know what the size limits are for each of the codes. And what do I mean by size limit? If I have code 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I'm going to have either a revenue-based code or an employee-based code. It could say 7 million for that particular code. What does that 7 million mean, Monica? It means that my average sales over either a 3-year period or a 5-year period does not exceed 7 million. If it doesn't, that means I'm small under that code. So federal procurement is Naics code driven. You must know your codes. You must know what your size limitations are under each of your codes. Because when you find an opportunity to bid on, and we go through this extensively in the all-day classes, you need to know what you can bid on and what you can't. So if you find a janitorial contract, and it says that the Naics code is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the size standard for that code is 2 million. You run a 3-year average or a 5-year average, and you exceed 2 million. That means you're not small. That means you cannot bid. This is why the codes are so important. And on a couple of slides, I've given you the link to all of the codes. You need to look at that and make sure you take all of those codes and understand what your size limitations are. Because when you're looking to bid on contracts, that's when they come in handy. All right. Where do you put all of these codes that you find so that the whole world knows and your potential customers that are out there know that one, that you exist, and two, that these are the services and or products that you provide? That's your SAM.gov. You must have a SAM.gov profile in order to do business with the federal government. No exceptions. Even large business has a SAM profile. If you want to receive federal dollars, you must create a profile in SAM.gov. So that's where your Naics codes are placed. And next to the one that's your primary, you'll have an opportunity to put in the word yes. And the system will capture that and show any potential customers that visit your profile. The one that has the word yes next to it is your primary Naics code. This is the code under which you generate the majority of your revenues. When a SAM.gov profile is created, it automatically creates an SBA DSBS profile. It's done automatically. So if I'm a contracting officer conducting market research to find the perfect firm to provide services under the cybersecurity contract, I'm going to look at your SAM profile, and I'm also going to look at your SBA DSBS profile. It's just what I'm going to do. I'm checking you out. Then I might go and look at your website. I might maybe check you out on LinkedIn, but for the most part, officially, I'm going SAM.gov and I'm going SBA DSBS. Each profile gives me as the contracting officer something different about who you are as a firm. This goes towards my process of selection. So make sure that your SAM profile is active and up to date. You need to renew it once a year, every year. In the all-day session, I actually allow everyone to pretty much kind of, Priscilla, I'm forgetting we're not doing in person. So I keep forgetting. So I'll virtually be going to SAM.gov, pulling up profiles and showing you what that looks like and what types of information the contracting officer is going to be looking at. When I would drive to New Jersey from Maryland to teach this class in person, and I would be with you guys all day, we would literally, I would let every single participant look up their SAM profile. No, if you didn't have one, you didn't have time to create because it takes too many hours to do it in class, but at least to look it up and make sure it was good to go. And one of the biggest things is it needs to be active. So if you do not renew, it will come up, it'll still stay in the system, but it'll come up inactive. If your potential customer sees an inactive SAM profile, they move on. So you must renew every year, and you will receive an automatic email from the system letting you know it's time for you to renew, okay? And then this just goes into, and actually I've got something blocking here. So this is pretty much your Naics Codes list. So this is, I've given you a link. Here we go again with that Naics Code link. And I'm going to keep giving it to you because you need to know where to find these. So you can either look them up and get a very detailed description off the census.gov website, or there's also a PDF here that I did find. The last time it was updated, I believe, well, they posted this was in 2019. So this is the most recent list of all the codes. Take a look at those codes. When you're out there and you're bidding on work, you may also run across FSC codes and PSC codes. So sometimes contracts have a Naics code designation. It'll also give you the FSC code as well as the PSC code, all right? So the last two are just more as an FYI, just letting you know that those two other types of codes do exist. All right, and you know me, knowledge is power. So I'm all about, let's say you want to check out some of the things that I said today or everything that I said today. You can always find this information in Federal Acquisition Regulations, which is FAR. So all of the programs that we went through today, you'll find in FAR Part 19. So FAR is thousands and thousands of pages deep. So what I've done is I've just pulled out certain parts of the FAR that I think that you as a small business will probably run across more often than not. All right, so you could just kind of, you know, go to these should be hyperlinks. So when you get the PowerPoint, you should be able to select right on it and it should redirect you. Otherwise, you can go to acquisition.gov using this link and see all of the FAR regulations. Then I've also provided for you GSA's regulations because they are separate from SBA's small business programs, as well as the DFARs. All right, knowledge is power. It shouldn't just be the contracting officer that's sitting with all the information. You need to understand how things work as well. They know, you don't know. So we don't want to make it where we're reliant on them being honest and truthful with us, and we base what they tell us on what our next step is. You don't want to do that without having the ability to check it out for yourself, okay? And then leveraging, and we're almost nearing the end of our presentation, so hang in there with me, we're almost done. And so one of the things you want to do after you get your SAM profile set up and you've got your SBADS profile set up, you've got your codes, you've now obtained whatever certifications you think you want to go for, or maybe you're still in the process, of applying for them, no big deal. You need to start looking to build relationships. But in order to do that, you've got to, one, identify your customers. Not everyone needs your widget. I know we like to think that everyone needs toilet paper or everyone needs janitorial services, but some are in need more than others. So how do we go about finding out who these customers are that procure what we offer? That's in your identifying those customers. And there's a database called USA Spending, which in class, I actually go to USA Spending and conduct research and show you how you can generate a report or a query on what? On identifying who spends and what you did. And so that's something that we'll do in class. We probably spend about 20, 30 minutes just on that task by itself, because I'll usually ask the attendees to provide me with their primary Naics codes, and I'll literally perform that research virtually live. So you can see exactly what the spending habits look like across agencies. How can I send you out to market if you don't know who you should be marketing to? So this is where that comes in at. We need to roll back just a little bit, roll our sleeves up, gather some data, and then take that data to proceed to create a marketing approach / strategy that fits those customers we're going after. But to just wing it, to just not really know who spends and what we do, and just you're out there talking to everyone, not really sure if they even procure what you offer, it's just not a good look. So what we do in our classes, we put a stop to all that. We get you more structured. We help you to strategize, create an effective marketing strategy to win, work, and establish the right relationships, not just random ones so you can check a box. All right, and you can read the rest of these at your leisure, but pretty much just identify your customers, research their requirements, which are contracts. You want to learn about the FAR. I've given you a couple of links. You want to present your capabilities directly to the federal agencies, as well as large primes, your Lockheed, your Booz Allen. They're your customer as well. All right. And then next we've got, you want to make sure that you attend value procurement conferences, business expos. And I didn't change my language here, Priscilla. And the reason why I didn't do that was because virtually they're still holding these things. I attended a 3-day SBA conference. I think it was a couple of months ago. I attended a week and a half conference with, I think it was DLA. So these things are still going on. You just need to find them. So where do you find them? On the agency's website. That's always the first place that you go. You go to the agency's website and you look for those upcoming events, opportunities to virtually shake hands and kiss babies, pre-bid meetings, all types of wonderful things. Just go to the agency's website. All right. Next is you want to have your SAM profile, and then you want to demonstrate to the contracting officers that you can meet their need. It's not about you, it's about them. So it's great that you think that you're great, but that's not what I'm after. And also, you're not the only one that provides that service and or product. There are plenty of the firms I could reach out to. What makes you so special? This is what the last bullet is really about. You've got to understand that you're not the only game in town. There are other companies that do what you do and do it well. So how will you set yourself apart? For me, first bullet and last bullet are the most important out of everything that's on this slide. And why is that? Because one, I've got to identify who I'm reaching out to. And then once I identify them, last bullet is I've got to come up with what they need so that I can be able to do everything else that's in the middle. All right. And these are just some links that I just mentioned before, like the USA Spending. That's my favorite. That's a database I go to probably on a daily basis to conduct research on previous spending. So when you go to USA Spending, this is not opportunities to bid on right now. These are contracts already awarded. Well, Monica, why am I looking at it? Because I'm attempting to generate a list of those that procure what I offer. Without that list, I'm winging it. And I don't want to do that. Also in USA Spending, when you generate your report, it's also going to give you a list of the awardees. So if you're, Monica, I don't know what primes do what I do. Well, in USA Spending, you'll get that list as well, along with a slew of other information. Okay, and then I've thrown in a couple of other little databases, one for IT dashboard. The third bullet holds the exact same information as the first. But the first bullet is the new system. The third bullet is the antiquated system. My daughter's 23. That system, FPDS, has been in existence before she was thought of. It's hard to use. It's hard to maneuver. It's just not my favorite thing in the world. But for a really long time, it was all we had if we wanted to conduct research on previously awarded contracts. Not anymore. USA Spending is absolutely wonderful. You're going to have a lot of fun with that. And if you attend the all-day session, we're going to have a lot of fun with it because, again, when we were in class, you would get to do the research right in front of me and I can help you. Now I'm going to do it for you, and we're going to pretty much communicate during our session to walk through it. All right. Identifying opportunities. So once you get your list from USA Spending, what do you do with that list? Now that you've got your hit list, and Priscilla's heard me call this for a few years now, once you have your hit list of those that you want to market to win business, you need to look for work. So I told you before, I don't believe in waiting for things to be published in beta.sam before I, get started or, get revved up. I want to look at the procurement forecasts. So I've given you a link, and during the all-day session, we'll also go to this link and we'll look up some actual requirements and we'll see what the forecast looks like. I'll help walk you through how to read it, how to maneuver through it. And then from there, you'll have to track and capture.
I'm so sorry, Monica. Can you check the chat real quick, please?
When we go chat or Q&A?
Check the chat real quickly, please.
Okay, let me go. Let me go. Okay, I see 2 in chat. 1 second. Okay, got it. Thank you. Finishing up now. Terry, I'll get your question in just a second. I'm going to finish these last couple of slides. We've got another webinar starting in 15 minutes. I apologize for going a little bit over. So with this one, you want to make sure that you've got your procurement forecast link here, and then you're going to take the list from USA Spending, and you're going to look up upcoming procurement forecasts so that you can do what? Find work for the future. And then beta.sam is finding work for right now. In the all-day session, sorry, fingers moving too quickly. In the all-day session, we will actually go through procurement forecasts as well as beta.sam. And then in red, I'm just informing you that if you bid and you don't win, always request a debrief. And prior to bidding, always attend a pre-bid meeting. You don't win, request a debrief within the first 24 hours. Prior to bidding, attend any pre-bid meetings. You can gain a lot of knowledge about that. Here's a link to acquisitions.gov. That's just a screenshot of that. Sub work, meaning being a subcontractor, that spends, that's money. We want to generate that revenue. So as much as we want to be prime, we also want to look for subcontracting opportunities. SBA has created a subnet database where you can actually go to subnet and you could look at what large primes are looking for in way of hiring small businesses to fill those areas where they are weak. All right. Screenshot of subnet. These are some of your subcontracting goals. Some are statutory, some can pretty much be negotiated. All right. And then lastly, this is the OSTABUs. So the OSTABU is an individual who's a small business specialist who sits at the agency. Right now, she's sitting at home because of COVID, and her job is to help small businesses maneuver through her agency. That's pretty much what her job is. And with that being said, I've given you a link to the OSTABUs, and you can look up, it's by agency. So you'll see Health and Human Services, and then you'll see all the different personnel that work in the small business office or in the agency as a whole. And then at the bottom, I've given you a link to the PCRs. They are hired by SBA to oversee, to make sure that there's small business participation when it comes to government contracts. Okay. And that's the end. All right. So we have one question. All the other questions were answered. Terry, I was not employed, but I collected unemployment from New York State and for my entire first year and own my business. Will that impact? Yes, that will impact your 80 application. I have been full-time in business for more than 1 year. If you've been full-time in business for more than 1 year, then Terry, yes. You could seek the 1 year in business waiver, but then it would go to what was your revenue generation? That's pretty much a loaded question at that point. We would need to kind of talk a little deeper about what that looks like. But as far as the outside employment requirement, looks like you're okay. You've been operating the business on a full-time basis with no outside employment, you should be fine. All right, any other questions? Okay, great. Priscilla, all done.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Monica. We're just going to wrap up because we have a webinar starting in about 10 minutes on certifications on the state side. So for those who are on this webinar, feel free to sign up for the next one. But I would like to thank you for taking the time out today to join our webinar. As Monica mentioned, we do have a full day workshop coming up in February. If I'm not mistaken, it is going to be February 22nd. And on that webinar, we'll go, it's 5 hours from 9 to 2. And so we go a little bit more in depth, and there's some exercises that can help you maneuver the procurement systems that Monica talked about, and dive a little deeper into some of what she covered. So feel free to visit our website at www.rnsbdc.com and go to training and just look for that workshop to sign up. I'll also send the link to register for that workshop. It's usually $125. It has been discounted by 50%, so due to COVID. So please take advantage of that and register. For those that are on today's webinar, if you want to have a one-on-one consultation with Monica, you can just feel free to visit our website and request counseling. We'll also reach out to you as well to see if you have any questions. You may have been, some people are sometimes afraid to ask the questions on the live. And so we'll just follow up after to see if there's any questions that you have that need answering. But definitely, if you do attend the all-day workshop, you do get a couple hours consultation. It does not matter where in New Jersey you reside at that point. But for now, for the webinar, for today's purpose, you will have to follow up with your local SBDC. So if there's no other questions, I'm just going to close out for today. Thank you, Monica, for taking the time out today. Another informative webinar.
I know, I also used to work.
So I look forward to the full day workshop. And if there's no other questions on here, we will close out today's webinar. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you. Everyone have a great day. Bye-bye.